I remember we had a group of this committee that went down to the El Paso section of the border. This was back in February, March of 2021. And during that time period, we were at one of the holding centers, and there were these buses that were coming to the detention facility, and they were picking up 30 kids, 50 kids at random, walking out of the facility. And when I went over to question the bus driver that was transporting these kids, border agents told me, as a member of Congress, that you're not allowed to question the bus driver. And of course, people knowing me, I didn't take no for an answer, and I repeated the question. And I was told that this bus of children was leaving El Paso and going to San Diego. And so what was occurring under the Biden administration is that they were busing unaccompanied minors all across the United States for one reason and one reason only. And that was because they did not want the press to see the pictures of kids in cages. They did not want to see our borders being overrun. They wanted to disperse that problem all through the United States. That is the reckless history of illegal immigration under Joe Biden and the Democrat Party.
Representative Donalds is setting up a broader argument. His position is that border communities carried the consequences of federal immigration policy for years, while many cities elsewhere in the country experienced those effects only after migrants began arriving in large numbers.
Mayor Johnston of Denver, you lamented earlier that there were 10 to 11 buses coming per day to your city. Did you ever talk to Joe Biden about why this was happening to your community?
Thank you, Congressman. I both reached out to Governor Abbott from Texas. He didn't respond, and I did.
Why would you reach out to Governor Abbott of Texas when it is Joe Biden, the former commander-in-chief, that opened up our borders? Why didn't you talk to him?
Well, our buses directly were being sent from Governor Abbott in Texas, so that was why we reached out to say we're happy to collaborate on a coordinated entry system. We understand no one state or no one city should bear the entire brunt of this, but let's collaborate. But I did.
So I'm glad you said that, because that brings me to my next point. Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis, when they started moving illegal aliens out of their states who were bearing the brunt of what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were doing, and they've sent them to Denver, they sent them to Chicago, they sent them to New York, they sent them to Martha's Vineyard. The reason why they did that is because you four could hide behind the realities of illegal immigration on border towns all through our country and on cities and states who did not want to see illegal immigration, but did not have the political representation to go to the White House. And only when it showed up on your doorstep did you get upset. Mayor Johnston, coming back to you, how much did your city spend on illegal immigration? Do you have a round number?
Over the last couple of years, on all newcomers, whatever their status was, it's around $79 million since 2022.
$79 million. Mayor Johnson, Chicago. How much has the city of Chicago spent on illegal immigration?
If you're referring to the 2022 up to 2024 of the buses coming from Texas, roughly the same percentage of the state of Texas, about 1% of our overall budget.
What is that? Because we don't have the city's budget in front of me. Numbers.
It's 1%, and if you want the actual calculation, we can make sure someone.
You're the mayor. You don't have the math in front of you.
It's 1% of the overall budget over the last 4 years.
That's why you're a failing
which
mayor.
is
Mayor
the same
Adams,
number that
how
was
much did the
sent from
city
us
of New York
from the
actually
state
spend
of
on
Texas.
illegal immigration? Mayor Johnson, I already asked you. You don't have a hard number, and if you don't have a hard number, you're not running your city well. Mayor Adams, how much did the city of New York actually spend on illegal immigration?
$6.9 billion of taxpayers' dollars.
$6.9 billion of taxpayer money on a problem that was fostered on the American people.
The discussion is no longer centered on border security alone. It is becoming a debate about costs, local government responsibilities, and whether cities that support sanctuary policies should also bear the financial consequences associated with those policies.
Mayor Wu, in the city of Boston, how much did you spend?
We don't ask about immigration status and delivering city
You don't
services,
ask
so
about
we
how
don't
much
have
money
that
the city of Boston has spent on illegal immigration?
We
Are you
don't
out of your
distinguish
mind?
between immigration status.
Do you
as
manage
part
your
of our
budget
city
or not,
policies.
Mayor Wu?
That is how we keep
Mayor
our city
Wu,
safe.
do you manage
we
your
have
budget or
the
not?
numbers to prove it. I manage my budget. I have a AAA bond rating dating back 10 years.
So to the city of Boston,
budget.
just understand that your mayor does not care how much of your resources she has spent on people who are not citizens
The city
of
of Boston
the city of
is
Boston.
sick of having
I'm reclaiming
people
my
outside
time.
Boston
Mr.
telling
Bear,
us what
Mr.
we
Bear, I have
need.
a question for you, because I understand Cato's perspective when it comes to illegal immigration. I understand that the Cato Institute for a long time has had a standard of actually having open immigration into the United States. Generally speaking, I don't want to get into specifics.
We support legal immigration. We want immigration to be legal.
So let me ask you this question, because one of the great libertarians of the modern era, Milton Friedman, famously said, you can either have open borders or a welfare state, but you have to choose. Mr. Beer, what do you choose?
Milton Friedman said he wanted to allow illegal immigration to continue. I disagree with Milton Friedman's position on that. We should have legal immigration and build a wall around the welfare state, not around the country. That's in the best interest of taxpayers.
And I would argue that under the current system where you have sanctuary cities popping up, it is not possible to build that wall. So America has to choose, Mr. Beer, you're done. America has to choose between securing our nation or protecting the taxpayer. I choose secure the nation. I yield.
This hearing was officially about sanctuary cities and immigration spending. But what unfolded inside the House Oversight Committee was something much larger. A confrontation over who should bear the costs of federal immigration policy and whether America's political leaders have been honest about those costs from the beginning. Representative Byron Donalds approached the hearing with a very specific argument. For years, border communities repeatedly warned that the scale of illegal immigration was placing enormous pressure on local resources, public services, schools, hospitals, law enforcement agencies, and taxpayers. According to Donalds, those warnings were often dismissed, minimized, or ignored by political leaders far from the southern border. Then something changed. Governors in states such as Texas and Florida began transporting migrants to cities outside the border region. Suddenly, communities that had previously debated immigration largely as a national political issue were confronting practical questions involving housing, shelter capacity, public spending, and social services. That shift transformed the immigration debate. And it changed who was participating in it. One of the most important moments of the hearing came when Donalds repeatedly pressed city leaders for spending figures. At first glance, those questions may appear purely budgetary. In reality, they reflect one of the central political battles shaping modern America. Who pays? That question sits underneath nearly every major policy debate. Health care, education, infrastructure, defense spending, and increasingly, immigration. Supporters of sanctuary city policies often argue that local governments should focus on public safety, community trust, and municipal services rather than acting as federal immigration enforcement agencies. Critics argue that separating local governance from immigration enforcement can create significant financial burdens that ultimately fall on taxpayers. That disagreement has existed for years. What makes it more politically potent now is the scale. As migration levels increased, local governments across the country began reporting growing expenditures related to shelter systems, emergency housing, healthcare services, public education, transportation, and other support programs. The numbers quickly became part of the political debate. And numbers are powerful because they translate abstract policy arguments into something voters immediately understand. Taxes, budgets, public spending, household costs. The hearing also exposed another recurring tension in American government. Federal authority versus local responsibility. Immigration enforcement is primarily a federal function. Cities do not control visa policy. Cities do not control asylum law. Cities do not patrol international borders. Yet cities often find themselves managing the practical consequences of federal decisions. That reality creates a familiar cycle. Local officials argue they need additional federal support. Federal officials argue that existing resources are sufficient. Taxpayers wonder why the problem persists. And lawmakers hold hearings like this one. The exchange involving the mayors also revealed how differently political leaders frame the same issue. Donalds focused on costs. The mayors often focused on management. Donalds emphasized accountability. The mayors emphasized service delivery. Neither side was necessarily discussing the exact same question. That is why the hearing frequently felt like two conversations happening simultaneously. One conversation was about immigration. The other was about governance itself. The hearing also touched on a larger question that has become increasingly important in American politics. What responsibilities do elected officials have when national policies create local consequences? That issue extends well beyond immigration. Communities across the country frequently find themselves dealing with the downstream effects of decisions made hundreds or even thousands of miles away. The immigration debate simply provides one of the clearest examples. Another significant aspect of the hearing involved public trust. For years, Americans have heard dramatically different descriptions of conditions at the border. Some leaders describe a humanitarian crisis. Others describe a security crisis. Others describe an economic necessity. Others describe a breakdown of enforcement. As a result, many citizens no longer know which narrative to trust. That loss of confidence creates its own political consequences. Because when voters lose trust in institutions, they often begin demanding more direct accountability from elected officials. That is exactly what Donalds was attempting to do. Rather than debating theory, he repeatedly asked for numbers. How much was spent? Who paid? What were the consequences? Those questions resonate because they are tangible. Americans may disagree about immigration policy, but most agree that taxpayers deserve transparency regarding how public funds are used. Perhaps the most revealing moment came when several officials struggled to provide precise spending figures during the hearing. Whether viewers view that as understandable or concerning, it reinforced the broader theme Donalds was trying to establish. That local governments are being asked to manage challenges that have grown beyond their original capacity. The larger political significance of this hearing extends beyond any individual mayor or city. The debate over immigration is increasingly becoming a debate about resources. Housing, schools, healthcare, law enforcement, public budgets, and ultimately, taxpayer priorities. Those issues are likely to remain central to American politics for years to come. Because immigration debates are rarely just about immigration. They are often debates about who pays, who decides, and who is held accountable when policies produce unintended consequences. That is why this hearing mattered. Not because it settled the sanctuary city debate. And not because it resolved long-standing disagreements about border policy. It mattered because it highlighted a question that millions of Americans continue asking. When federal policies create local costs, who should be responsible for paying the bill? That question remains unresolved. And it may ultimately become one of the defining political questions of the next decade. But what do you think? Should cities that support sanctuary policies receive additional federal assistance, or should local governments bear greater responsibility for the financial consequences of those policies? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you value long-form congressional analysis that goes beyond headlines and examines what these hearings actually reveal about power, policy, and accountability, subscribe to Capitol Oversight and turn on notifications so you never miss the next breakdown.